Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into some material today that is, frankly, pretty unsettling.
It really is.
It focuses squarely on human vulnerability,
Yeah.
emotional pain, stress, and then lays out, in really stark terms, how these struggles, these moments we all face, could potentially be well leveraged.
Leverage for influence, even for what this text describes as a kind of seduction. It's definitely a perspective that challenges how we usually think about connection.
Exactly. We often see vulnerability as, a path to genuine closeness, but
Yeah.
this material, it suggests it can be seen and maybe targeted as a weakness, a way in.
Right. The core claim, really, that runs through all of this is that emotional pain and stress aren't just personal. They're framed as a kind of seduction playground.
And the reasoning is just blunt, isn't it?
Yeah.
The text argues that people who are vulnerable are, well, easier to control.
Yeah. So our goal here today, let's be absolutely clear, isn't to endorse any of this. Not at all. It's to explore the ideas in the text, understand the, frankly, chilling mechanisms it describes, and maybe most importantly, to really grasp the warning that's embedded in this whole perspective.
Think of it like we're looking through the specific lens this material provides. It's a lens that sees vulnerability strategically, maybe even clinically, rather than with compassion.
And hopefully, by understanding this viewpoint, you can be more aware if these kinds of dynamics show up. We're examining the claims, the examples, and the warnings this text puts right out there.
Yeah, it doesn't pull any punches. It starts by painting this picture of, widespread emotional struggle today.
Right off the bat, it throws out a statistic suggesting, what was it, over 74% of adults felt so stressed they couldn't cope.
Yeah, something like that. But the unsettling part is how the text interprets that. It's not framed as, a mental health crisis or a call for support.
No, it's framed very deliberately as an opportunity. The logic presented is, well, it's cold. This high level of pain is seen as the gateway to vulnerability.
And vulnerability, in turn, is presented as the gateway to influence. It's like identifying a common human state and just defining it as a strategic advantage.
Yeah, for someone seeking control, and then it brings up Casanova.
Right, Casanova. But not in the way you usually hear about him. It doesn't focus on the romantic conquest so much.
No, it claims his real skill was a psychological mastery.
What does it mean by that? Psychological mastery.
Well, it suggests his success wasn't just charm or looks. It was about making people feel deeply seen. Really special. He listened intently, adapted his approach, mirrored their emotions, built a certain kind of trust.
Okay.
The key, according to this text, is that he offered emotional escape and validation. The seduction in this view was intellectual and emotional first. The mind and heart were the targets.
So hitting the mind and heart first.
Precisely. And then the material just drives the point home with this really direct, uncomfortable statement. Emotionally overwhelmed people are the easiest to control.
Wow.
That phrase really sets the warning tone for this whole thing. It's not subtle about its premise at all.
It certainly isn't. It positions human pain as a vulnerability to be exploited, not, something requiring empathy.
And then it shifts focus a bit, zooms in on stress itself, calls it the modern illness.
Right. It paints this picture of people feeling buried under responsibilities, constantly judged, shackled by expectations, maybe suffering in silence.
Totally. People under this kind of emotional siege, it says, are actively searching for relief. They just want a break from it all.
And this is where the strategy comes in. The text suggests you can become their silence, their sanctuary.
You position yourself as the refuge from the storm.
That sounds almost positive, sanctuary.
Yeah.
But then comes the kicker, right?
Oh, yeah. The text immediately adds this chilling line, almost like an instruction. Once you become that sanctuary, you can lead them anywhere.
So the relief isn't the goal. It's the tool.
It's the leverage, exactly. Which brings us to that historical example it uses, Napoleon and Josephine.
Ugh. All right, Napoleon, the strong general. But even he had moments where he cracked under the pressure.
And the text explains why, in its view, he turned to Josephine in those moments. It wasn't for military advice.
No, it was because she gave him emotional comfort when he was weakest.
Josephine's role, as this material frames it, was about understanding him. She was soft, soothing, and present. It emphasizes she didn't argue politics or strategy. She was just that emotional anchor.
Away from the battlefield, yeah.
And the text links this directly back to its blueprint. It gives another stark instruction framed for us as a warning about the tactic itself. If you want to seduce like Casanova, stop dazzling people with strength. Instead, become the shelter in their storm.
Look past the armor. Find the wounded soul, it says.
Yeah, so the focus completely shifts from projecting your own power to perceiving and, well, leveraging their hidden pain.
And it argues modern life is just really good at creating these hidden vulnerabilities, that constant pressure to have it all. Career, family, social life, look good, feel good.
It creates enormous internal strain, right? And the text claims this leaves people wide open to someone who knows how to read emotions. The striving itself, the facade, creates the cracks.
And it circles back to Casanova again. Influence isn't about power displays, it's perception.
He observed. He saw the sadness or the hunger behind the mask, and a key tactic mentioned, listening more than speaking.
Listening more.
Yeah. The text claims this created a kind of desperation in people, a desperate need to connect with the person who finally seemed to get them.
And then comes that really direct instruction, which, again, we need to see as a warning about the tactic itself.
Definitely. It says, don't aim for their body. Aim for the aching heart behind it. Offer empathy, presence, and charm, not to help them heal, but to make them yours.
Make them yours.
Yeah.
That distinction is crucial, isn't it? The appearance is comfort, but the stated purpose is control. It's the manipulative core.
Absolutely. And then it broadens out, talks about societal exhaustion, creating more opportunities for this.
Like people being mentally exhausted by all the messages saying they aren't good enough, not pretty enough, successful enough, feeling judged.
Exactly. And this exhaustion, the text argues, means people are hungry for someone who sees them as enough, someone who makes them feel understood.
In a world constantly criticizing, simple acceptance becomes incredibly powerful.
And the consequence described is stark. When you become that person, they'll follow you blindly. It attributes this extreme loyalty to just feeling seen.
Wow. And it reinforces the warning. The more society breaks them, the more they crave anyone who offers genuine connection. That's your chance. It reframes that basic human need as an opening.
Yeah, an opening for influence. It also touches on loneliness, calling it a silent epidemic. People scrolling, maybe projecting perfection, but actually desperate to be seen.
So the proposed solution for the influencer: be the one who sees them. Use emotional intelligence. Listen deeply. Ask real questions. Mirror their feelings.
It really hammers the listening point, leading to that potent claim. In a society where no one truly listens, the one who listens becomes a god.
That's quite a statement. It shows how starved people can be for genuine attention.
It does. And then it looks at toxic relationships, people stuck, spirit crushed.
What's the tactic there, according to this?
It appear as the complete opposite. Be kind, attentive, present. The goal isn't rescue, remember? It's to look like salvation, to offer a stark contrast to the negativity they live with.
And that contrast creates a craving for the safety you seem to offer, making them cling.
That's the idea. But again, the text is explicit about the intention. You're not here to rescue them. You're here to lead them, to influence them. The kindness is strategic.
It's a means to an end. Control.
Right. And finally, it uses some really specific examples. Parenthood and work.
Ah, yeah. The heavy burdens. How does it frame parenthood?
Describes it, especially for mothers, as a war zone. Feeling invisible, dreams swallowed up, the tactic. Treat them like a woman again, make them feel desired, adored, seen as an individual.
To awaken a forgotten hunger.
Exactly. It calls this emotional resurrection. By reviving that lost part of their identity, you create this intense bond. You become the source of feeling alive again.
And work.
Described as slavery, grinding people down, killing their joy. The tactic here is to be the opposite of work. Playful, light, alive.
Be the contrast to a dull life.
You become the escape they crave from the daily grind.
And the conclusion on these examples is pretty intense.
Yeah. Once you make them feel alive again, they will follow you into fire. It directly links that emotional revival to just extreme susceptibility.
So pulling it all together, what's the core message this material is selling?
Well, it concludes that influence and this manipulative seduction it talks about isn't really about force. It's about understanding. Specifically, understanding and targeting emotional pain, stress, unmet needs.
The mechanism is clear. Find the cracks in the human spirit, pain, loneliness, exhaustion, and position yourself to fill them. Not with real healing, but with strategic charm, warmth, attention. Become their emotional refuge.
And the final warning about this whole approach is, well, it's that people will come to you not with resistance, but with longing.
They're drawn in, not forced. Pulled by the relief you seem to offer.
Because, as the text concludes, in a world where so many are overwhelmed, the one who offers emotional refuge becomes irresistible.
And that, it says, is how this kind of seduction begins.
Yeah.
and how influence lasts. It's a really stark summary.
It really is. It forces you to look at basic human needs being seen, understood, finding peace through this very different strategic and ultimately, yeah, manipulative lens.
Suggesting these aren't just parts of healthy connection, but potential tools for control.
It's a potent reminder, isn't it? Someone offering comfort or deep listening might, well, they might be operating from a very different blueprint than you think.
Which leaves us with a really important thought for you, the listener, based on everything we've just unpacked from this material. Given how common emotional pain and stress are described here, how aware are you when someone might be attempting to offer you this specific kind of emotional refuge?
And thinking about the tactics described, the intense listening, the mirroring, becoming the contrast, what might their underlying intentions truly be? How does understanding this particular, maybe unsettling perspective potentially change how you perceive certain interactions in your own life?
Especially those interactions that feel maybe intensely validating or like a sudden profound relief. Something to think about.